the politics has changed, but has the psychology, has the sociology, and has the religion changed? And that is another question when we're discussing on reconciliation. Now, starting with the psychology is that for a long time, we have been seen as inferior. For a long time, we have been divided. For a long time, there are certain ideologies that has been put in place. At no point have we addressed the psychology of these conversations. Our psychology, so to say, in Namibia, the psychologists, majority of them, again, happen to be white people. Now, this is not to say that, white people are bad or anything like that. But for instance, how do I begin to explain my hardships as a black individual to someone who can't relate? And this is my psychologist. He who does not understand something that is like 3 generations down is that my uncle was attacked by, so to say, white soldiers and so forth. And because of his attack and so forth, I could not entertain bringing white friends over because that is something he has to deal with and so forth. That is something that's close to home. How do I begin to express something so intimate to an individual that can never relate to such a situation? And it's the same way that conversation can never be understood because they cannot also relate to how bad it is because some of these structural things were also hidden from them. You have propaganda that was placed to show that, so to say, SWAPO and the liberation heroes and so forth were guerrilla, like terrorists. That's the word I'm looking for. They were seen like going against the regime and so forth. So you have these misguided ideologies and psychology that has not been addressed. So how do we begin to reclaim minds if we never even talk about the psychological impact and actually get the psychological aspects within our society to reflect that? Psychology is one of the lacking industries within Namibia so far. How do we begin with a country that is independent for 30 years? That means people back and forth, so to say, that people who have been through apartheid regime are still alive. People who are still living through it are still there. People, the hardships still faced are still existing, so forth. This is something so close to home, yet we have not even begun to touch the psychological aspects. The social aspects is, regardless and so forth, we are not as integrated as we like to believe, and so forth. As tribes, ethnicity, this is now on a tribal scale, is that when we go to, let's say we start work, when we go to school, when we go to institutions, so forth, we immediately group into our tribal aspect. Immediately we group and socialize within those elements. Even in group assignments and so forth, we talk in a language that we do know. We talk with people that we do know that we can relate with, that is back from home. How do we integrate as people when the only time we came together was to reach independence and then immediately we separated once again? We went back to our homesteads, we went back to our places that we were placed in. So to say is that, how can we see each other as equal as Namibians if we never actually try to integrate as ourselves, as black people initially? Whew, sorry. The religious element. So there's a man of God here, so I'm going to choose my words wisely. Is understanding the history the way I do, is that I'm not saying religion itself is bad, but religion was used as a tool to shackle individuals and so forth. When we still depend on those elements to decide policies, the same tool that was used to hold us and keep us down and so forth, how do we expect change to occur and so forth? We still go back to the book and the book that was given to us for our land to decide how to distribute our land or how to interact with other individuals and so forth. How can we still use the same tool of our princes and so forth when they have long forgotten it too? So to say, in other nations, that's an example. So it is something that we have to, So in the instance and so forth, how do we then begin to have these conversations if we don't discuss all elements that were used against us? We have to recognize the tool in itself of how it was used in our oppression, and we have to decide how far we are going to use it in our liberation. And those are important conversations. So that is just understanding the term itself, is that if we're not addressing what has really happened to us as people, how do we expect to remedy that? How do we expect to move forward, and how do we expect to, in the sense, reconcile, even though that's not the term we should be using, if we have never addressed these elements? So we have a lot of questions that's come out of that. What is the ethical thing to do? Because I'm not saying we should get rid of religion. Religion is a good place for moral up and down if you use correctly. I'm not saying we should kick people out of the country and so forth because this is as much other people's homes as it is ours. So what is the ethical thing to do? We are in a dilemma, and that is the honest truth about it. So how do we begin to address this dilemma and so forth? Is that, first of all, we have to be able to acknowledge who was harmed the most and how to fix that and so forth. How do we still have people who so to say, stripped of education, stripped of resource and so forth, still now facing those same issues when there's no such of justice being served? How is it that in my generation and the generation of my sister and so forth, you still have the first individual going to university in that family? That there's no education, there's no money within those societies, within those institutions. That becomes very difficult. Is that the best way forward ethically could really be retributive justice. And the only time you can actually even discriminate is when you discriminate for the lesser. But yet we have not discriminated for the lesser. Our policies, you can see, it's always leaning to those that are fortunate. The people who get tax breaks are the investors that we want to welcome here, the rich people, the people that don't need them. Yet we don't have the surplus, the SME money that we're going to plow back to our people. They're not a priority. How is that possible? The people that we were shackled and left behind are told to fend for themselves, but we're willing to give the rich people more time, more money, more access, and all those things. That is not justice in itself. How do we expect them to catch up? How do we expect there to be some sort of equality if we're never assisting the people that have been actively, through history, we sing the songs we know, who actively we've done nothing to assist them? That is a question where we can see the ethics are being judged, or the connotation. So I don't have a solution for you because it's a dilemma like that, but it's a conversation of how have we not started down going up? How have we not made sure that the lesser man, the individual, the uneducated have education, have running water, have all those elements that they need to succeed? That is where we're supposed to start. Yet 30 years later, we still have areas even within Windhoek that doesn't have running water, doesn't have toiletries and all those things. We have people with difficulty to get any education and so forth, especially now even with more pressure of COVID-19. So do you see how it's never been reconciliation could have never occurred if we've never even paid attention to the people that need it the most. And I believe that's how I want to start, and as the day continues, I'll express my thoughts.
Thank you very much to Lifa for that articulate position that he put forward in relation to reconciliation.